Hello, my name is Gabriel, and I'm going to present Act 3, Scene 1 of Hamlet. Um, there are three different types of moods in this play, in this part, sorry, creating a contrast between the characters. We are going to show in three parts that Ophelia is more living the moment in her melancholy, that Polonius is pragmatic but empathetic, and Clodius is completely cold and pragmatic. And a few things alongside. Ophelia is not in the same state as Clodius and Polonius. The dialogue with Hamlet before this has crushed her, and she is basically rethinking about the past and being melancholic. So first we're going to start with this asyndeton. So I'm going to highlight this in pink. Sorry, not the right one. Pink, because it's a stylistic device. So there are two things to say about this. The first one is the use of the asyndeton because she is supposed to be speaking fast and out of breath. And this is supposed to show that she is panicking. The second thing to say, it's more it's more hard to see actually. It's sorry. It's how the order of the words are placed. So the courtier, the soldier, the scholar, and the eye, tongue, sword. So what we don't really pay attention to this at first, but what we see is that the soldier goes with the sword, the scholar goes with the eye, and the courtier with the tongue. So what's interesting, what's funny here is that she doesn't put them in the right order. You see the attributes, the sword here is in third position of the attributes, and the soldier is in second position. So this is to show how lost she is in her thoughts, and this translates in the order she puts in her words, basically. Continuing with these nominal sentences, starting with the. So again, two things to say about this. First of all, the absence of action verbs. The absence of action verbs here shows her powerlessness. So there are no action verbs in the first part here. We'll see there are some in the second part of the structure, which we'll talk right after. Something else to say about these nominal sentences is that she's trying to distance herself from Hamlet, by using his attributes instead of things she did with him. But we see right after this that this kind of distancing that she's trying to do does not work, and it falls apart, and she goes back into the past, into her melancholy, and basically talks about how she met Hamlet, etc. And there are some operations of action verbs. So yes, we can see this. So here's an action verb that sucked. Yeah. So this is one action verb. There are no other. So what we can say is that This is divided in two parts, basically. So, the first part will be in blue, and the second part in red. So yes, so as we said, um, this part is where she is trying to distance herself from Hamlet, and this part is where she falls completely down into the past and her melancholy. Um, something quite, um, sorry, something here to note is how she switches between her words from one mood to another. So let me explain. I'm going to highlight this in, let's say, yellow. Yellow. So these two words, deject and wretched. So deject and wretched are words that show anger. They're rough to say, and kind of show, yeah, her anger. But the sentence right after here, she said that sucked the honey of his music vows. So she goes from "and I of the ladies of most deject and wretched that suck the honey of his music vows." So there's a contrast between the words she uses. And this basically shows as the misplacement of the words in her symmeton. This shows how lost she is, not only in her thoughts, but as well in her feelings. So I'm going to highlight this in, let's say, a purple. Music vows. It's to show you. Here we go. Yes. Okay, so she... what we can say is that there is no iambic pentameter, and this again proves her panic. Coming to her conclusion, her last sentence before the end of scene 1 in Act 3, "Oh, woe is me, to have seen what I have seen. See what I see." Now, what shocks you here? Well, what shows first is the scene. It's repeated quite often. I'm going to highlight this in orange. Scene. Remember, this is to help you. Everything that is related to stylistic devices, structure, and the same lexical fields. Sorry, so I'm going to highlight this in green. No, sorry. So the same lexical field are here on the side, so this is to help you on your notes. Anyway, so yes, the repetition of scene. She is asking for help. See what I see. And I have the impression that she is trying to say something to the reader or to Clodius and Polonius, but she cannot. What she says, she says, "See what I see." But it's as if she couldn't express what she has seen in Hamlet, and this is why she tries to she doesn't know how to say it, and this is why she repeats the word scene, scene, scene. It's really so she can kind of shock the reader, so he can feel intrigued by this scene, like what does it mean? And we don't know. I don't think Ophelia is able to express what she has seen. Um, what Something else we can say on a side note is that her style resembles this of Hamlet in his soliloquy before this. So different things. First of all, the nominal sentences, which are present in Hamlet's soliloquy with the repetition of the, and also the conclusion, which actually is in the same sound as to be or not to be. So be and seen, it kind of resembles. So this is what I noted. I thought was quite interesting. Um, so basically, Ophelia is blocked on her present state and the past, so she cannot focus on anything else than her previous relationship with Hamlet. And unlike Polonius, has no pragmatism. So the relation of this character with time is that she is blocked in the past and she is melancholic. Now moving on to Polonius down here. So, Polonius, in this passage, is a wise and pragmatic old man, unlike sometimes where he seems a bit off, as we said. He has this very human and normal mood compared to the other two other characters, who are either in a complete sorrow, like Ophelia, or in complete pragmatism and coldness, like Clodius. So, what shows this first is actually his first sentence, which can be divided in two parts. This one. So I'm going to show you the structure. I'm going to put this in blue and this part in red. Now, so it's cut in two parts. So first of all, he says, "It shall do well." So he's talking about, he is responding to King Clodius, who was proposing a solution about how Hamlet, the problem Hamlet should be taken in hand. And so he says, "It shall do well," in complete pragmatism. But he uses "but." "Yet do I believe the origin and commencement of his grief sprung from neglected love." He talks about how Clodius is probably the reason why Hamlet is like this and why his daughter has become the way she is here, so in melancholy. So he's blaming Clodius, and he is going out of the main focus that his mission, that was to see what Hamlet's problem was and try to solve it. So he is deviating, and he is becoming more personal. So this is what is seen in here. So he is being more personal. "How now, Ophelia? You need not tell us what Lord Hamlet said. We heard it all." So yes, he's having a personal tone with Ophelia. So we are going to put this in red as well. And all this part, we're going to put in blue because it is a pragmatic part where he comes back to the initial subject and has no personal kind of relation with the character. he just expresses, "My lord, do as you please." But if you hold it, he just advises Clodius on how the situation should be handled. In terms of vocabulary, so the vocabulary, the same lexical field of feelings and care. So what I want to show here is the word grief, which I'm going to highlight in green. Dark green. Grief. I'm going to highlight love. Love, which is part of the feelings. Oh, we heard it all. Yes, and the word grief here as well. So, okay, so not many words, but some words that show that his part of kind of not total complete coldness, kind of he still thinks about the human feelings, about not only about a problem, but also about the consequences and the aftermath on the actual human being, and doesn't only think about himself in these few words, and of course in the personal tone he uses with Ophelia. Um, so basically, Lord Polonius is being like the yin-yang character in the middle of the two other characters. He is acting like a caring father who is still being pragmatic and wise when advising Clodius. And Clodius, who is actually quite cold and calculating compared to him, and especially in the end of scene 1. So moving on to Clodius. Finally come we to the character that I accord a lot of importance to, because he is the reason that all this has happened. Clodius is here cold and calculating. He expresses no worry for Ophelia, and only thinks about how he can stop his enemy. He actually almost sounds like a scientist or wizard experimenting, analyzing, and looking for a solution. Now let me explain. First of all, we're going to start with the lexical field of the mind and the body. There are quite a few words. First off, there is the word madness, here that I'm going to highlight in green. The word soul, which is about the mind. Brains, which is here. And the heart here. So yeah, so what do these words show? Well, it makes him kind of look like a doctor, looking at his patients, analyzing his patient, what is maybe going wrong in his patient. This is a possible interpretation. In other terms of vocabulary and lexical field, he uses unprecise vocabulary that makes him look like a specialist or a scientist. Let me show. So first of all, he uses the word something that I'm going to highlight and a different shade of green lighter. Here you go. So something, he uses something, variable objects, which actually sounds quite mathematic to me. Variable objects. This really kind of sounds mathematic. And something settled matter that sounds scientific. But all this vocabulary, as you can see, is unprecise. It's not something you would want to use in an essay. But he uses it to sound as if he was a specialist, because he makes it seem like it. Variable objects is nothing precise because there is no subject, but he still uses these two words and combines them into something that makes it look complicated and scientific. Coming to something else now, a metaphor. Yes, this metaphor, o'er which his melancholy sits on brood, and I do doubt the hatch and the disclose will be some danger, for which for to prevent I have in quick determination thus set it down, etc. He shall with speed to England. This one, disclose, will be some danger, but I will highlight in pink because it's a stylistic device. Okay. So, he uses it as an image of him observing the hatch of an egg, like if his melancholy was going to transform into something else. And so basically he is being the experimenter, the observer of this egg that is going to hatch. And so it reminds us kind of a scientific or some kind of wizard in the time looking at something new that he has found to write many to write a document about it. Anyway, and so yes, here we go. So what I wanted to show as well was yeah, so okay, so to finish, to complete his research of the problem, he gives us a solution. Yes, he gives us a solution here, which to prevent I have in quick determination that set it down, he shall with speed to England. So he gives a solution. So basically what he is doing is a three-part way of thinking. He first does, like a scientist, he first does the observation or the questioning of the problem. Love, his affections do not that way tend, nor what he spake, though it lacked from a little, was not like madness. There's something else in his soul, so he's conjecturing, can we say this? And then he is, how can we say, observing, so not really experimenting, but observing the problem. And then he proposes a solution to this problem. So what I'm going to do is put 3 different colors to highlight this. Okay, so here we are back and I solved the problem. So we can see the 3-part structure. So here, this part with the questioning of the problem, the observing of the problem, and finally a solution. So yes, he seems to be a great scientist, does he? So yes, He is a kind of extravagant doctor who solves his own problems. But he is nonetheless still worried, and maybe a little more. Let's go down to this sentence, this conclusion, the final conclusion at the end of Act 3, Scene 1. It shall be so. Madness in great ones must not unwatched go. It's a short sentence, but there are many things to say about it. So, the king's paragraph before this is very pragmatic and scientific looking. This sentence seems very different from what he said before, almost as if he let down his mask to show his real face. It shows how worried he is, but also the fact that it seems universal. Yeah, you see, in fact, he uses madness in great ones and madness and not madness in Hamlet must not unwatched go. So, knowing that he is king, is he talking about himself? Could this be possible? Let me be clear. Universal speaking does ring a bell. Yes, Hamlet in To Be or Not to Be, where he uses a vocabulary that makes his ideas not seem personal, but more something universal, something that could extend to the world and human beings in general. And this is exactly what King Claudius is doing. Plus, the not unwatched go. There is something interesting. Um, he was the one watching Hamlet, as we have seen in this part. He is the one observing Hamlet since the beginning. But since the beginning, who was watching over him? Well, Hamlet. Has Hamlet given the madness plague to Claudius? Well, many things in this sentence only, well, tend to question us about this. So, to the deep sorrow of Ophelia, to the cold and calculating words of Claudius, we can see different characterizations and different effects Hamlet has had on the characters. But there is something equally intriguing in the relation of the characters with time. Yes, something quite important. Ophelia has had a relation of more with the present time and the past, as she thinks about the past with Hamlet, and Claudius has had a more futuristic vision of the world. I mean, not futuristic, but he wants to basically forge the future and what is going to happen. And these are kind of in parallel with the mood of the characters, with how the way they are, their being. See, Ophelia is melancholic and very sad, in deep sorrow. And we see that she has this particular relation with the past. When King Claudius, who was more pragmatic and very cold in this paragraph, has a more a relation with the future. I don't see any relation with the past. He doesn't think about it. He only thinks about the future. So there is a relation between the characters and the time they choose to express, and maybe time is in them. and it expresses through their character. And Lord Polonius, well, as we said, he is kind of in between both characters here, so as we can see, he uses the past, but he also talks about the future. So this was my presentation of Act 3, Scene 1 in Hamlet.